Hello, everybody. Welcome to the panel discussion World Wide Web of Justice as part of ISWI 2017. It's good to see you all here. I hope you've had a good first 2 days of group work. I have one request. If you could please try and make sure your phones are on silent. That would be very courteous to our speakers and your fellow guests. So thank you for that, first of all. Secondly, I'd like to start this with maybe a quick question, maybe just so we can see where you're at. Can everyone put their hand up that uses Facebook? Just real quick. Use Facebook. Use Facebook? Yeah, most of you. How about everyone that uses Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Tumblr? Yeah. Anyone on Reddit? Oh, yeah, a few of you. All right, so this just, I guess, shows again quickly how ubiquitous social media is in our lives. But the question comes up as to how good it is. And it's something that brings a tremendous power to promote political participation and to bring together people from all around the world. But it also brings risks with the ability of information to be fabricated and manipulated for the interest of special interests and groups and companies and governments. And it provides a breeding ground for hateful groups who would otherwise never have come together without the power that social media brings. Today, we're going to have a look at the opportunities and pitfalls of social media with regard to global justice, and we're going to have a look at the ways in which it can be used practically and discuss ways in which it can be used to make the world a more just place. The discussion will be moderated and the speakers introduced by Randall Newton, a local student of Media and Communications Science. So, over to you, Randall.
Thank you, Andy. And welcome to everybody. Glad you could make it today, despite the change of venue, the change of moderator, the change of weather. It's a state of change we're living in today. Let's put it this way. In the beginning, there was texting. And then there were flash mobs. And then there was MySpace, and there were groups. And people started finding people like them who weren't local. And it grew from there. And along comes the technologies of Twitter and Facebook, and suddenly it's a global phenomenon. And every idea has a tribe. And some people are more at home in that tribe, translocal, than they are with the people in their neighborhood. And that leads us to the conversations of what do you do when your tribe has a voice? Your voice wants to be heard, and your voice is for change. We've seen that. We've seen it in many ways in the past few years. We've seen it in a phenomenon called Arab Spring. More recently, we've seen it in a phenomenon called Brexit. And we've seen it in a phenomenon called American elections. And by the way, if you're a student of this, don't study the American election until you study the most recent Canadian election. Social media there was a very powerful force for change. I'm not the speaker here, I'm just the introducer. So let's get to the meat of it. I will introduce each of our speakers. I'll ask them to kind of give us a sentence or two about what they do, why they're here, and then we will begin with a series of presentations from each of them. I will have some questions, and then we will go to you for questions. That's how we'll run the afternoon. So on my immediate right, your immediate left, is Dr. Sebastian Stier. He is from Cologne. Cologne or Cologne. This American never knows how to say that name, that city name correctly. And he is with the Leibniz Institute for Social Science. Welcome. Do you give us a brief introduction, please?
Yeah, hi everyone. Cologne and Köln, it's both all right. So I'm working at GESIS, which is a Leibniz Institute. Those are research institutes funded by the German federal government. And I'm a political scientist, a postdoc researcher. In my research, I'm very much interested into looking at the political effects that social media has and especially during election campaigns, what is the role of social media in protest movements, and so on. And I'm looking forward to discussing these issues with you here.
Next we have Salah Zater from Libya, but now living in Germany. Salah has experience as both blogger and journalist. And let you introduce yourself a little bit more.
Yeah, thank you a lot. I would like to start my talk with saying, ISWI ist meine große Familie in Deutschland. I don't speak good German, but I'm really happy to be again here. And ISWI is my big family in Germany. I'm happy to be again here in 2017. I was here in 2015. I gave workshops about human rights violation and also about freedom of speech. I started working as a journalist during the Arabic Spring, or as we say, Arabic uprising. Mm-hmm. I started working as a journalist by, well, I think it's by accident, but I think in 2011, I was in Tripoli, the capital of Libya. It was not easy for me to get information about what is going on. You know, the situation was so complicated. There is so many violations happening and big conflict between the Gaddafi regime and also between the rebels or the people who made the revolution against him. So my friends, they started calling me, or people they calling me from the other part from Libya, and they asking me how is the situation in Tripoli. And for me, there is no channel to talk to people. Yeah. And that time, almost the Libyan TV stations or media was following the government. Of course, they are not going to report what is going on in the country, and you will get the information just from one side. Then I say, okay, let us go, use Facebook. I wasn't expert in using Facebook at that time. And okay, I start to write what is going on in the city, what is going on in my street, how many people they have been killed, where is the demonstrations are taking place. So it was a really big channel for me to talk and inform the people about what's going on. Then after that, I start to work as a journalist. So people, they ask me to work with them because I was active on social media.
Okay, let's move on and we'll get back to the whole story later.
Yeah.
Let's introduce the rest of the panel now.
Yeah.
Next we have, thank you. Next we have Professor Martin Emmer. He is with the Department of Communication Sciences at the Free University of Berlin. And I want to say one thing about him before he introduces himself a little further. He is a graduate of the Media Studies Department here of Ilmenau. So he's an old Ilmenauer come home for a visit.
Yeah, that's right. I've worked in Ilmenau for almost 14 years, and I've seen many ISWIs in that time, and I'm very happy to be invited today and be here. What I'm doing is research on media use. I'm a micro social scientist, so I'm interested in what people do when they use media, and I'm most interested in the field of digital and mobile media and the sphere of political communication.
Thank you. And our fourth presenter today is Antje Allroggen. Forgive me if I didn't say that correctly. She is a freelance journalist based in Köln, and she is also the host of a regular program on Deutschlandfunk. And Antje, you tell us a little bit about yourself, and you will be our first speaker if you just want to go ahead and get into your presentation.
And I'm the second one from Cologne.
Yes.
You have to note.
Well represented.
Yes, I work in Cologne for the Deutschlandfunk. It's a public radio in Germany, which you can hear in all the Länder, in all the federal states in Germany. And I'm working there for 20 years, I think. I worked for the culture reduction, and we have a brand new media reduction where I'm working for as a moderator, editor, and author as well.
So, go ahead. You will give us the first presentation.
Okay. Before we start, I have a question. Do you know the Deutschlandfunk? Have you ever heard about the Deutschlandfunk? 1 yes, 2 yes, okay. Yes, I think normally the listener to the Deutschlandfunk is 55, years old, so he's quite old. Another question, which German radio stations do you normally listen to? Deutsche Welle, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. If you come from foreign countries to Germany to study here, you probably know better really the Deutsche Welle, which is same as the Deutschlandfunk, part of the German public service broadcasting authorities. If you don't know what this word means, it means that the public, this means at the end the citizens, that means you, pays for this program. In Germany, you have several public radio and TV stations which are embedded into local interests because the broadcasting is part of the division of work between federal government and the state governments in our German federal system, like the MDR, the WWDR, or the NDR, which are state-based broadcasting stations. This is different for the Deutsche Welle and the Deutschlandfunk. The Deutsche Welle is a public broadcasting service for foreign country, so outside Germany. And the Deutschlandfunk is the only public broadcasting service in Germany which is broadcasted in all the Länder, which mean federal states. So it is the only nationwide radio station without any commercial advertisement. In practice, this means you always listen to somebody who speaks, and sometimes to some music, but not really mainstream music. So allow me to say it is a really special and important offer. Public broadcasting service published in a certain way by order of the public or in the interest of the public. That's the reason why they have to report without any special political interest or a political bias. They have to inform people even about things that might be not convenient or comfortable for the government. This is an important difference to the private broadcasting service, which belongs to private companies, with the intention to make a profit. Of course, the person or the company which pays the radio always has a certain influence on the content. But unfortunately, this clear-cut differentiation has vanished over the last years in the view of many citizens. A trend which creates quite some challenges for the public radio like the Deutschlandfunk. How shall we react to this? More and more people seem to think that also the public broadcasting service in Germany has a political influence, a strong political tendency, or concrete, that some ideas are pushed by some important or influential people into the programs. This not seldom leads to quite aggressive reactions and allegations from auditors. You have certainly heard about the German expression of Lügenpresse in Germany. It is an old expression which means lying media or lying press, but in a very negative way. The Nazis talked about Lügenpresse when they read articles or heard reports which were in their eyes too friendly towards Jewish people. Nowadays, where the political climate has changed in Germany, anti-immigrant protesters have revived this old expression, like the movement of the Pegida in the Eastern Germany. In 2014, Lügenpresse was the non-word of the year. Years before, you did not hear this word in Germany. Journalists might not always have had the best reputation, but in particular, the public broadcasting services were highly respected. But this view has really changed over the last 2 or 3 years. A journalist working for a local newspaper or a public radio might even be in danger when he or she is doing interviews for a report about a Pegida demonstration. Just by doing their work, by interviewing people, asking the question why they demonstrate as part of Pegida. It happened that a female journalist was insulted by the demonstrating mass. Even the families of these journalists have been threatened. There are some people who vote for radical parties like the AfD or join Pegida demonstrations, who think that institutions like the Deutschlandfunk don't tell their audience the truth. Everything which is published there is only a sign or a code for propaganda or manipulation, they believe and say. A whole conspiracy theory had been created around this topic. I believe that for these people it was a nice and helpful coincidence that the social media is on its way to dominate everybody's life. Anyway, my impression is that people who talk about Lügenpresse seem really to like social media very much. No distributor of information is more efficient and has such a high coverage as Facebook or similar office. To get an impression about the type of insults a German public radio like the Deutschlandfunk is faced with, I show you some postings. I forgot the first one, I'm sorry. Yes. Perhaps I'm too far away from you. No, it doesn't work. Well, if I give you the, okay. Thank you. No, I think it's okay. This is the first one. This responses on an interview which had been broadcasted on January the 8th in the Deutschlandfunk. And the interview's topic was about the Israeli head of government, Benjamin Netanyahu. The interview refers to an article in the Israeli newspaper Haaretz, which reported that the Israeli police own some recordings which prove a deal between Netanyahu and a businessman. And the interview speaks about corruption. And one posting you see here speaks about a blame for his country and that the majority of Israeli didn't vote for him. This you can see. It's the first one. And then the posting you see here, which is framed in red, there somebody comments, it's a quotation, Jewish fascist Nazi Schwein. How shall we as a public institution react to those postings? Our general approach is that if somebody comments in a really insulting way on our postings, we withdraw these postings. And that was the case. If we find comments with extreme or radical opinions, for example, on a Facebook post, we comment the postings. I give you an example. I try to give it. This was also on January the 25th. We posted an interview broadcasted in our radio program with Jens Spahn. He is the Secretary of State and member of the board of the CDU. And in this interview, he criticized the nomination of Martin Schulz. Schulz was just nominated as the new candidate for chancellorship from the SPD. Mr. Spahn talked about a Sturzgeburt. I don't know if you understand this expression. It means a precipitate delivery, and to translate it literally, he speaks about a precipitate childbirth. And in the comments, one user said that the only precipitate childbirth is Mr. Spahn himself. He even went further and said it would have been better to withdraw his own birth, and so on. Here now the comment from our online department. Deutschlandfunk, wer lieber Nutzer. No, it was the same, sorry. Dear user, we appreciate that you comment postings on our Facebook site. We kindly ask you to consider adopting adequate language for the future and not to blame other persons. Otherwise, we are forced to delete your posting. It is also interesting to see what the user answered. He wrote, Yes, you are right. I apologized for my behavior. I will work on my expressions on social media, but my attitude remains the same. I chose these examples to show you that the Deutschlandfunk has every day to deal with a large number of comments and postings. And I have to say, a lot of them aren't really politically correct. In the past, you as an editor or moderator received one mail, even one letter, not many, but one in a week perhaps. And nowadays we have every day plenty of comments, emails and postings about the work you do. In these mails and postings, the listener or user of our program not only criticizes things, topics or persons, it also happens quite frequently that you as a person are blamed or discredited. Sometimes these postings and mails are really demotivating, even depressing. It happens that you, working as a journalist, think that your audience is a big mass of criticizers. And you risk to forget about all the listeners and users who think in a positive way about your program. Is there a way out of this depressing situation? The Deutschlandfunk took the decision to raise its voice against hate speech and fake news by talking more than before about media and by analyzing those trends in the German media and social media scene. In this March, the Deutschlandfunk launched a new program which is dedicated to media topics. It's the first time for a German public radio that a radio station offers a daily media journal to their audience. Medias Res, that's the name of our program, reports about media news, media ethics, media politics, media economy. And we try to look behind the scenes. We talk about incorrect reports that happened, even if it concerns the Deutschlandfunk itself. It already happened. And we talk about hate speech. Medias Res also talks about investigative journalism. Of course, Medias Res is based on our general approach to report always in a respectful manner, with a lot of curiosity. As the Deutschlandfunk wants to remain one of the leading medias in Germany, we have to deal actively with the expectations and opinions of our audience, even if this is sometimes personally challenging. And in future, I think we have to look after the silent audience. I mean, our listeners and users who appreciate our offer, but who are a little bit intimidated by the other ones crying louder and less respectful. Perhaps we have even to encourage this silent audience to remember the values of our society. We try to integrate all our audience, all of our users, so that there is a feeling like a Deutschlandfunk community, also in social media forums. A professional management of the community is very important, and to integrate every user in the community, you need a positive framing. This means that you talk to your audience or to your users in a positive, not arrogant way. And it is important to talk about your own attitude. I think a public radio doesn't have to lose its self-confidence. We have to reassure people that hate speech can never be an alternative to the freedom of press. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Emmer?
Yeah. Just go on. Yeah, let me tell you first that Deutschlandfunk is really one of the best pieces of journalism you can get in Germany. You should try it. It's always wonderful to hear Wolfgang Schäuble grilled at 7:30 in the morning by Deutschlandfunk journalists about some issues. But that's my private professional opinion. I was invited to talk about my my work and what my view on this issue of justice is. I thought a little bit about what this would mean to what this would mean to me, because I'm, as I said, more a micro researcher. I'm not working on theoretical and global terms, but if I would say what I contribute to justice, global justice, then it is that I'm trying to understand what digital media can contribute to self-determination of citizens. What do they offer for participation in societies? And this is something what I do now for almost 20 years. I started doing that here in Ilmenau in the mid-1990s, where we started to research what effect has the internet on the behavior of people in terms of communication, and particularly political communication. At that time, 20 years ago, all were quite euphoric. We all had Habermas in our heads, this idea of an open deliberation where everybody can contribute to a public debate, discussing public issues, and the internet was something that provided almost ideally what Habermas described in his theory of public sphere and of democracy. And so a lot of research questions back then tried to find examples or proof for new forms of democracy, of mobilization of people with help of the internet and digital media. Also I did. And what the research produced was some slightly positive findings. We saw in many studies we did that there is some slight positive impact of the internet on people. People tend to use more information after they went online. They tend, on average, to develop some more positive attitudes toward society and democracy. But that were just slight effects. It wasn't like the internet would change everything and it would bring democracy to all human beings. What stunned me at some point was that when looking at these findings from research, that 80% of the studies are from the US and the rest is from Europe. And in the end, if you will be honest, we know up to today very little about what effects the internet really has. We know that there are some slightly positive effects in Western societies, but there is hardly any study to research, for example, the impact of the internet or digital media on societies in sub-Saharan Africa, for example. So this is one of the reasons why I started to widen my perspective recently and focus a little bit more on these contexts, which is quite interesting because there is some indication from research that the internet may play quite different roles in developing countries than it does in Western countries. We see some examples of for example, a blogosphere that never really developed in Germany as it has developed in many other countries, which is partly due to so wonderful media like the Deutschlandfunk. There are not many gaps or missing spots in the media landscape that could be overcome by the use of digital media like a blogging scene. And so this is very, very different, and some research findings point to the fact that the internet might have some stronger impact and give more power to people from marginalized parts of a society or even marginalized countries that are in a transforming state than it would provide for developed countries like Germany or the US. which carries a lot of potential even for economic progress. And we can see some examples of very innovative developments for example, in African countries where I'm doing some research with colleagues from Kenya, for example, and Ghana since a few years, which shows that there are very, very interesting applications and potentials, and maybe we can talk about these a little bit more in our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to start my talk with asking a few questions. Who's reading a newspaper every day? Hand up, please.
You're talking about newspaper.
Yeah. Who's reading a newspaper every day? Yeah, print one. Who's watching TV every day? Yeah. Who's listening to radio? Yeah, that is good. So I would like in which kind of resources you are depending about to get your information. I would like to share with you about the Arabic uprising, which really social media played a big role in informing people about what is going on during the revolutions. In Libya, for example, lots of young people, they start to be active. It's speaking. That's fine. In Libya, there is lots of people that start to be so active to informing about the political situation and what is going on. And it was really a big platform to people to share news and communicate together from every part from the country. And it was really has big political influence against the Gaddafi regime, because in that time Gaddafi was trying to control the country, and also at the same time they blocked all the internet. So during the revolution, there is no internet, there is no Facebook, there is no Twitter, so you can't just watch the news on the TV. But for me, I would like to speak about my experience as a journalist, how I use the social media in my work. It's really helped me a lot to find resources, because sometimes when I do some work about some taboo topics, I have to find resources. And for me, it is not easy to find resources in the daily life. So I have to look on the internet to find some people, hey, I want to make this interview about like drugs. Do you have no problem? Can I make with you interview? It really has so many positive stuff, but at the same time, has so many negative stuff. If we are seeing lots of people today, they are getting their news or reading the news from social media, Facebook or Twitter, and they don't make sure about what is in the article. They just read the title because they have no time, or sometimes they share the comment or post or news or tweet it without making sure who was behind sharing this information or this news. So Facebook or social media had really different kind of, it has one positive side and also have negative one. But also at the same time, if we talk about Facebook, we see like every day there is lots of hate speech. They are really encouraging hate and encouraging for hate, or making the situation is more difficult. It also became really lots of people or politicians, they use social media to lead people, to lead people to some kind of opinion or changing their mind. And also at the same time, if we talk about social media now, or in general about media, I'm a journalist. Really, for me, I don't trust media a lot. I'm working as a journalist and I don't trust media. Unfortunately, every TV station or newspaper or radio, they has their personal agenda, and you cannot trust them. So for me, I'm trying most time to get information by talking to people. For example, here lots of people, they're asking me, how is the political situation in Libya? Which is also good that all of you are coming from different countries, and this is a big chance to talk face to face and talk the information or the news from the people who really can trust them. And this is why I found it really good. But also at the same time, there is lots of positive stuff about using social media, but also there is big problem that every day we read lots of fake news. There is fake news in every day and every hour, and people reading and believing, and they didn't make sure about who was behind this, publishing this news. And there is lots of Facebook pages or Twitter pages. They are following some governments, and they are promoting their ideas, or they are trying really to let people think in one way. And at the same time, you cannot control social media, because if you control it, there is no freedom of speech anymore. So it is really difficult to talk about social media, about media, how you can get your information. This is not easy, but in the same time, there is so many positive stuff about using Facebook. Like, it is easy way to separate the news. It is easy way to get information in everywhere in short time. And also sometimes and as we see now, every human being lots of us, we became journalists. If you talk about the citizens' journalism, just in 1 second, one picture, one video, publish it in your Facebook, and sometimes some videos in a few hours, you find hundreds of thousands of people, they watch in this small video. It was like 2 or 3 minutes. Yeah, so for me, social media has really two sides. It's positive and negative, but in the same time, you have to be careful really about the news, which kind of channels or Facebook pages or Twitter that you are following, because there is really big, you can really lost in this kind of a platform. So you have always to make sure and try to ask and make sure and try to find people to talk with them about this kind of news to find the truth. I always ask people, they ask me about some questions, I say, okay, find the truth by yourself. Look, you will find it. So what I'm here just more to ask me, and I can answer more, because really I don't depend a lot on using social media, but really I have a problem with using Facebook more than 8 hours of my life every day. And I think lots of you are using Facebook. If I ask who's from you using Facebook from 1 hour to 2 hours? Hand you up.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. From 3 hours till 6 hours? Wow. From 6 till 10 hours? Wow. I didn't want to say 24 hours because I know there are some people also almost time they are online.
Let me ask one more question on that line. Who wakes up every time the phone vibrates in the middle of the night to see what it is? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, see.
Let's get real.
So social media is completely controlling our life, and almost of us, we don't want to communicate with people face to face. We find it is more easy to make friends by Facebook or by Twitter than talking with people and communicating every day. And this is really dangerous, because in the future there is no social life anymore. So, and thank you. I will be happy to answer your questions more than talking about my work or how I use social media.
Great, thank you. Dr. Stier.
So thank you. That's really, a great point for me to look at and use it as a framing for my talk. So we have heard about hate speech, we have heard about weak information quality and Facebook and so on. And that's actually, those are two topics that I somehow touch upon with my more general talk. So I want to raise 3 points that I think are relevant for research in this field and are relevant especially for public debates in this field and on such topics. So my first point is we need robust empirical analysis if we want to talk about things like fake news, about whatever you meant with Brexit, and about whatever you meant with the US presidential election. So over the last few weeks and months, we have heard so many news reports without solid empirical analysis. And there are so many dystopic visions of the internet floating around right now. We hear so many doomsday scenarios. And my plea is give researchers time to actually look at the data, to analyze the data, and then find out about the effects of all of these things that the media and the public debate often assumes are so horrible for democracy. So these dystopian scenarios are oftentimes really just like detached from the reality on the ground. So 2 points. The internet is a moving target and research needs time. And oftentimes public debates just are speculation about the effects of something on something. And that brings me to my second point. How do we actually study effects? Most of the time we are interested in outcomes. So there's a phenomenon X, let's say fake news, and there's an outcome Y, let's say the result of the US presidential election 2016. And in the middle, we have a lot of speculation on how these two things are causally related. But how do we actually find out that they are? Because social media are such diffuse information environments. We don't know where information originates. We don't know the motives of actors. We can't attribute messages to the Russian government. That's really, really difficult. And some people have tried to do that. So let's put it like this. So what we can find out is that fake news exists, that there are sites that have very clear political motivations to produce and spread political stories of very questionable quality. We also know that many people share these stories. BuzzFeed had a great report on the prevalence of fake news on social media. But what we don't know is what kinds of effects do these messages actually have. So one thing that communication science has taught us is that there's even a whole school on that. It's called the minimal effects school in communication research. It has shown that it's really hard to persuade people politically. It's really hard to actually make people change their political opinions. And if $2 to $3 billion spent on TV ads during the US presidential election campaign season we can't really find out if these 3 billion in TV ads have strong effects. And if we know that newspaper articles have weak effects, I'm struggling to find a good argument why a message by a social bot, which is very obviously not a human being most of the time, and which is not part of my network, should influence public opinion much. So we are missing clear causal mechanisms from phenomenon Y to from phenomenon X to outcome Y. And again, that's a call for solid empirical research. And for example, a recent paper has shown that the effect of fake news on the election outcome in the US was probably very, very minimal and marginal. So that's the second plea. And especially if we look at, and that's an important part, if we look at these effects, so it's still an open question who actually uses social media for political purposes. And that's, of course, especially the case in Germany. If you look at Germany, 4% of the population use Twitter. And of course, there are good arguments to be made why communication on Twitter moves beyond Twitter to the mass media, it sets the agenda and so on. But still, I mean, we really have to look at who uses social media for which purposes. And I talked to Martin Emmer before, we don't have that data, at least for the German case, and for many other countries as well. And the third point I want to make is also closely related to something that Martin Emmer said. The US is a very special case, economically, politically, socially, culturally, and the US has the most, I would say, currently the most polarized political system in Western democracies. There's a very clear separation between conservatives, between liberals, and therefore, whatever happens in the United States doesn't necessarily travel well to other contexts, to the German multi-party system, to developing countries. And again, and especially the US also has very weak data protection and privacy regimes, which in Europe will be strengthened in the next year or in this year. And therefore, there is still a lot of hope that these dystopian scenarios that we have heard a lot about in the last few weeks won't actually take place in the context of the German election, for example. So my general point is, I think the internet can still be a force of good everywhere in the world, and I think a lot of the things that are discussed publicly are not really backed up by empirical data. But that doesn't mean that you encounter on Facebook sites that spread hidden propaganda. That doesn't mean that you don't encounter hate speech on Facebook. Of course, those are important problems. But overall, the research findings are inconclusive and mostly show that at least we don't have echo chambers on social media. That's one of the findings from the US, by the way, from recent studies. And that the effect of fake news is overblown in the public debate. So those are some arguments that I wanted to make here. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Stier, let me ask you the first question because your remarks are the most recent on my mind. You talked about the USA being an extreme example, and we can't really generalize on that, but I'm wondering if there is a generalization to be made where let's look at the technology of social media and ask the question if there's something about it that is fundamentally, and others pipe in on this one as well, is there something fundamentally about it that encourages the polarization? Inherent in the media, inherent in the nature of everybody's got a voice.
Sure. And that brings us to the topic of filter bubbles and echo chambers.
Oh boy.
So the whole idea behind this echo chamber hypothesis is that the internet has so many information sources and it provides so many heterogeneous sources of political information of dubious quality. And people don't just watch their 2 television stations, ARD, ZDF anymore, which are of very high quality and have fairly balanced viewpoints, but people go to their segregated echo chambers and pick their information from this source that they prefer and that is in line with their political preferences. So that's the basic hypothesis. And of course, social media has mechanisms like these filtering systems that sort out content for you, and social media are built around social relationships. So there are 2 mechanisms at hand that could accelerate these selection processes. That there is social homophily, which means you will get exposed to the information that is also important to your friends, who are very similar to you in terms of political ideology and so on. And there is the filter bubble that keeps you inside of your small, restricted political silo. And now I'm going to ask you, is that different from personal contacts that you have? Are you discussing politics with your closest network offline in a very diverse way? So whom are you discussing politics with offline? And the finding is, in the research, is that actually online networks contain more weak ties than offline networks. You are also friends with your co-workers, with your distant relatives, with people you have met once at a party on Facebook. And research shows that most of the time, some of these opposing political views get inside your network on social media. And that's still a disputed finding, and that's what I wanted to say. For the first point, we need to look at the empirical results across many years, maybe even, to actually find out how these processes change. But some research, or most research, suggests that actually on social networking sites, the contents that you are exposed to are rather diverse in terms of political ideology. And one more point, most people still get their news with mainstream media sites on social media. So already that is a point that keeps together the public sphere on social media as well. So yes, there are inherent properties that are different, that have the potential to fragment the public sphere, but it's not happening at such a scale as this echo chamber theory, for example, predicts.
Okay, thank you. Antje, you talked about how the issues of relating to very not nice behavior on the part of commenters, to make it simple. And the one time one of them said, well, I apologize for, I'm paraphrasing obviously, I apologize for being offensive, but I do not apologize for my opinion. What do you think of for the role of professional journalists in whatever society? And we've got students here from 40 nations or so. In whatever society we find ourselves in as professional journalists, is there an ethic that needs to be embraced about it's more than just reporting, it's got to be educating? Do you feel that within the profession is a rising attribute?
Yes, I think that's really one of the reasons why we made this program, this reduction. We had a media reduction and emission one time a week, And I think the perspective changed a little bit, because now it isn't weekly, it's daily. We cover media topics. And I think, yes, we had to learn, we as working as journalists had to learn that that's not really a special interest topic, media, but it's a topic for everyone. And I think we journalists are also living in a bubble, and we have to learn it.
Yes.
Yes, I think we however, we have to report it, and we have to respect the audience. We don't have to think, oh, they're always criticizing us. It's yes, they pay us, so we have to report about it.
Yeah. Okay, exactly. Okay, thank you. Excuse me. Salah.
Yeah.
The Arab uprising is a few years behind us now, of when there was so much turmoil in so many countries in such a short period of time. We didn't really use the term fake media in those days. That's a more recent social meme, social idea. But looking back, do you think that in all the communicating, where it was Twitter or social or SMS or WhatsApp or whatever, texting, as the information was flying in some of those exciting active days, do you think there was a fake news thing going on that you had to deal with in hindsight? You just didn't know to call it fake news? Was that an issue for you?
Yes, of course, there were like a lot of fake news during that time. So, and it was not easy to make sure if this news are true or no. And for example, it was also really like a huge propaganda against Gaddafi. We know all Gaddafi, he's a dictator, and he did really horrible stuff in Libya. But in the same time, it was really a huge war against the Gaddafi regime inside Libya and outside of Libya. If you are watching Al Jazeera, for example, in 2012, I thought it's a really very professional TV station. But after being journalist, Al Jazeera have nothing to do with working as a professional, because they are really made big propaganda. They are saying lots of lying every day, and their goal was just to kill Gaddafi and finish the regime of Gaddafi. So there is so many fake news. But in fact, at the same time, if you talk about fake news, it also became like political term. Since the few or years, so it is really not easy. Now, when I said like I don't trust media, I don't mean like I don't trust all the media. There is a few good media which really you can follow them, and you can read what they are writing or what they are publishing, and you can trust them. But in the same time, there is a huge media, TV stations or radios, and the people now, there are so many people who's promoting their ideas, their agenda, and they are using Facebook or abusing social media for their special interests. So I think fake news are existing everywhere and every day of our daily life. And at the same time, if there is no fake news, there is no true news.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Dr. Emmer, is today's fake media the last generation's propaganda? Are we just changing names here? Is there something different going on?
No, you tipped on a very, very difficult issue in communication studies, and that is what really is propaganda. This is a quite old term, but there still is a lot of debate going on until today to define what propaganda is, and it's even more difficult with this term fake news because it's so new, and this is really one of the nasty things of being a social scientist, because a lot of problems and issues we are researching come upon our desk predefined by some journalists who just think about such a term and say this is fake news, and then we are forced to define it give it a scientific definition, which really is quite hard. So fake news can be, I think fake news is the more open concept. It is most probably very often used as a means of propaganda. So people are designing deliberately fake news for propaganda means. But you may have read about this phenomenon of producing fake news just on economic terms. So it produces clicks and views and these these guys from, I don't know whether from Albania or
Macedonia.
Macedonia, that's right. Made a lot of money just by producing strange messages, strange news, which spurred a lot of attention by users. So this is a very difficult thing. I know that some colleagues of mine at Münster, for example, are working since last year on a big project that is designed to identify propaganda on the internet with different approaches from communication studies and computer sciences. Because this is in fact a growing problem, but there is not really a solution for that at the moment.
Thank you. All right, now we want to put the mics out into the audience here. Where's my runners? There's one of them. And who's got a question? All right here in the front, in the yellow shirt. Yeah, second, third, fourth row there. Okay, the lady here, and gentleman there, and lady there. We're not going to be able to get to all of them. We'll get to as many as we can. And maybe first question is going to change question. Somebody else is going to pop up. So I'm not going to necessarily know the next 5 questions. Go ahead.
Hello, I am Mohammad Irfan from Pakistan. I am a media and communication student at TU Ilmenau. Thank you so much for the panel for bringing rich knowledge to all of us. I have 2 questions, one from Salah Zater and one from Anya Allroggen. The first question is, what is your advice for the bloggers and activists who speak against the unjust state policies living inside the geographical spheres of the states, as it is not possible for such bloggers to go in some other country, and even if they go, they are labeled with for their perpetrating foreign agenda. And for my next question is for Anya.
Why don't we just let the first question be answered? Oh, okay. So who was that first one to? I'm sorry, was it Salah? Okay. And then when he makes his answer.
Yeah, I think if I understand your question, what's my advice for the bloggers who's using? Yeah, I think so. So I think if we talk about Pakistan or Bangladesh or that region, that region, that area, the bloggers, they are really facing lots of problems daily of their life. Lots of them, they have been killed or tortured, or lots of them, they are still in the prison till today. And because what they are writing, what they are doing, there is if we talk about the fake news and we talk about all the problems about traditional media or the new media, also in the same time, we are going to talk about the real activists or bloggers who's really risking their life every day to saying the truth and what is going on, and they try to express themselves in different ways, and which is not easy right now in lots of countries. I think my advice for the bloggers or everyone using social media, you have really to be careful, and you have really to care about your safety as a blogger. It's really more important. As a blogger or as a journalist or as any human being, it's really more important. And at the same time, you have really to careful. I mean, if we talk about social media, no one can tell me there is privacy, 100% privacy, if you are using Facebook or Twitter or using WhatsApp. There is someone who got all your data, all your information. If you want to open Facebook, Telegram, anything, they ask you for everything. Your mobile, where are you living, what are you doing? And they are spying on you 24 hours. Don't think that there is a privacy in the world, because I believe there is no privacy. And the last few weeks ago, I really start to think what I have to do. I have to block my Facebook. I blocked it just for 6 months, but it was difficult for me to communicate with people. So I opened it again. My Gmail, my WhatsApp, and everything. I think I don't feel I'm free in expressing myself and doing what I'm doing, because I feel there is someone watching what I'm doing. But I think this is what, if I understand your question is right, this is what I want really to say to the bloggers or activists who's using social media, and also for the audience, they have really to be careful and check and look for and find out or figure out if what they are reading in the social media, it's true or not true. It is up to everyone, I think so. It's your work. You have to find, and so many people, they are just watching or following, the people who's thinking like them. But also at the same time, if we talk also about the freedom of speech or of expression, we as a humanists, we don't talk with each other a lot anymore. If you talk, maybe I talk with you, you don't talk with me. You are fair to you are scared to express yourself, your ideas, especially about politics. But in fact, if I go to your Facebook, I found that you are writing a lot, too much. And this is really big problem. People, they start really fear to express themselves in public, which is also like some politician or others groups like right extreme wings or left groups, political groups, I don't know how to say that. So they use this fear to promote or mislead or lead the people to one corner or one side. I think so.
Thank you.
And because you got in before I made the rule, we'll give you the second question, but everybody else, can we have just one question, please? Okay. But I don't like to make up rules and then go backwards with them. So go ahead, ask your second question.
Since like Saleh also said that like I don't believe in the mainstream media or in the organizations, all those, because they have like their agenda, and like usually the news is not like true. So my question is that what are your advices for those journalists who want to speak the truth while staying in an organization who have their own agenda? Maybe it's like a state agenda or something like a business agenda. How they can speak the truth while working inside those organizations?
I'm sorry, my English is not really good. It's a little bit hard to understand. Your question was our work as a presenter.
My question is that how a journalist, how a media worker can speak the truth while living in an organization who has a specific agenda.
Yes, that's what we do. We have a cooperation in Medias Res with Reporter ohne Grenzen. You can hear them weekly, and they give us reports about the situation of journalists in specific countries. That's what we do weekly. And we ask them if they can talk about the circumstances in several countries. And the second thing we do, we have a cooperation with HoaxMap. I don't know if you know HoaxMap. It's an NGO. It's one woman who does this work. And yes, we talked about fake news about refugees in Germany. Different stories, not only with refugees. This was at the beginning really always the top story. Yes, but I think you have. There's always a little bit the danger if you work as a journalist in media that you talk about the good ones. We are the good ones and the bad ones. I think that's also a little bit dangerous. You have to take care that you don't play the role of always being the good ones that we are.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and I want to say also, if you have a comment, and it's not really a question, but you really think it would contribute, that's okay too. Let's go to the gentleman with his hand up there, the t-shirt, yeah. And then I'm sorry.
Hi, I want to raise an issue related to freedom of speech and censorship that's coming not from governments but from the platforms themselves. I consider myself a staunch defender of freedom of speech, which by definition has to include speech that you don't approve of. So I see it with a bit of concern when platforms take it upon themselves to fight against fake news and hate speech, because for me there's a thin line between what is fake news and what is just a controversial opinion. And of course, from a legal standpoint, they're a privately owned entity, and they don't have a legal obligation to guarantee neutrality or freedom of speech. But of course, they do have a huge influence. And so, well, in my opinion, it would be obviously good if they acted in the spirit of freedom of speech, which is not always the case. For example, the CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, is a bit infamous for suppressing opinions that don't align with his personal ideology. So for me, the question is, would you say that platforms have an ethical obligation to to act in the spirit of freedom of speech, or to put it another way, who watches the watchers?
Anybody want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, that is an important point. The problem behind dealing with these problems is a little bit, you may refer to this discussion we have in Germany about this Facebook law, where Facebook will be forced to block hate speech. And the problem behind that is that Facebook is regarded as, we in media governance for decades regarded private media institutions like publishing houses. Every newspaper is allowed to write whatever it wants. They are allowed to block opinions. That's their freedom. And in the whole field of newspapers, in the end, you would see a broad variety and you can select from, and then it all is okay. And that would be okay for social media platforms if there would be 200 social media platforms. Then Facebook would be allowed to block whatever they want, and others could have a different kind of opinion spectrum. And in the end, you would have variety all over the place. But the problem with the structure of social media today is that there is not really a variety. We're all on Facebook. That's the main global social media platform. And if this monopolized company is starting to do something, or is forced by German government to block something, then we really have a problem. And this is objecting any idea of free speech. And I think we really should find other approaches than having some communication blocked on grounds nobody really knows and understands. So you always have to have in mind that these Facebook guys are a quite small company with some young people from California who started this company 10 years ago. They are not really prepared to run the whole public sphere in 150 countries in the world.
Yeah, that's a good point. Anybody else on the panel want to address that, or I'll move on to another question? Okay. Right here, in the gray shirt. Can you get that to him?
Hello. Well, I have a question. Well, as you said, although the news platforms are changing, mostly from the TV to social media in a big scale, there's one problem that it's still remaining, that's fake news. So how do you think we can identify them, and how do you think we can identify the authors or the journalists that we are able to trust?
How do we trust the source, right?
Yeah.
We read something, we see something.
Yes, because
sounds wonky, odd, out of my realm of belief. How do I know this is a good source? Lady and gentleman, who wants to talk that one?
I think that's, for example, the reduction of the New York Times said it's really a good opportunity for journalists to work really hard on research. That's our job now. We have really to work very hard and try to discover things and to explain things to the audience. Why is it fake news? Yes, we got a big job because of fake news.
Great.
Thanks.
It's like sometimes you have news from the other, for example, I live in Latin America, so sometimes I have news and a political analysis, for example, from an Arab country or an Asian country. It's a place that I don't know, and I even don't know its context. So I feel that I don't have the information to identify if I can trust the source or not, because I really don't know the context, and I feel that on the internet I don't have like the information or the qualification to say, well, like I can trust this or not, or so much, you know?
Yes, if you ask me as a journalist, I think it's important that we say it takes some time. It takes some time to do this research. And even in our reduction, because we're the first reduction for the Deutschlandfunk, which works linear, so on the radio and online. And there are some young colleagues who want to really work to hurry up. They often ask me, can I push this story online? And I think it's even now in our reduction really a discussion. We have to wait. That's my opinion. We have to wait, even when we are not the first one who push one story, but we have to check it.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, the most important matter here is, of course, the conceptualization of fake news. It seems like we are throwing around this word too lightly, and this is also thanks to the current US president, of course, who uses this word for everything that's not within his political ideology. So originally, academics, after the US election or around October, November, actually somehow agreed on a term, which was, there was a differentiation between legitimate or even borderline political expressions and actors who are actually posing as serious media actors to really get people sharing their contents, to actually get people trusting their whole account. So these Macedonian kids set up these sites on Facebook in such a way that they looked like media actors. And that's what was originally within the scope of this definition of fake news. And that's already problematic, of course. And the only way we get around this issue is that each and every one of you is really suspicious all the time, is looking at the source as well as possible. And there is still this verification of Facebook and Twitter, these blue signs that show you that an account is legitimate according to the definition of Facebook, which is an issue you raised. So it's complicated, but of course it's up to every one of you to be very critical whenever you surf social media.
Let me rephrase the question, and I want to pose it to you, Salah. You live in Germany now.
Yeah.
So is it fair to characterize you as part of a larger Arab diaspora? Because we have refugees from Syria, you're from Libya. I don't know whether you consider yourself a refugee or not. No. But there's a population there that has left those countries and now is scattered throughout Europe. Is there an issue within that body of people of separating and figuring out what's good news and what's fake? Is that an issue in your particular culture right now? As people from Arab nations and North African nations who are not there any longer?
Yes, I think so. I mean, for example, me as a journalist, I'm really reading a lot of fake news sometimes. Yeah. And sometimes I'm really following some Facebook pages or some channels, which I don't trust them, but I follow them because I read what they write and I believe the opposite. This is what I'm doing sometimes to figure out if this is true or not true, but it's really working with me sometimes. I follow Al Jazeera, so many of them. In fact, sometimes there is so many people, really, TV stations or whatever, they are really right. There is part of the truth, but like 20 or 30%, but the others is not true. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of game, you know. But in the same time, I feel there is always a chance to find the news by talking to people. And I'm here like since 2 years, almost time I'm informing about what is going on in Libya, for example. Mm-hmm. And most times just I'm here like 2-3 days, I think more than 20 people asked me how so many questions about Libya. Wow. I think this is a good way, but I think in Libya the situation in Libya complicated, for example, because now there is no media in Libya working with two sides. You work with one side. So you work with militias or working with government or working with some groups and the other group maybe military. But all media, all journalists, they are not working in two sides. You have to take one side, you have to adapt one agenda. And you are, for example, if I'm from Tripoli, I'm not allowed to go to other city to write any report. And this is also happening with the opposite. And this is the same in so many countries. So, and this is also about the issue of the money. You know, it's also about money. Lots of people that are working in journalism, it's really good. I know here in Germany it is not good well paid to work as a journalist, but in Libya and other countries it's really good job paid, and you do that for money, so you don't care if the news are true or not true. But also at the same time, journalists, they have really to take the responsibility, and this is really working in media. It is not just work; it is more than that. It's really big responsibility, and this is a really big message to inform the people about what is going on. And now, since 2 years, I'm not working as a journalist anymore, but almost time I work meeting people, talk, discuss.
Yeah.
So I think I see it as also I'm still a journalist, but I found it's really great that talk with people face to face and see they react, which really can help a lot and to help people to understand how the situation in Libya or in Arabic Spring, for example. And also the same, you said some things very important about the limits of freedom of speech. I think it's also, I don't believe in the world there is a freedom of speech. In every place there is limits. I'm living here in Germany since 2 years. I really faced so many problems because sometimes I cannot express myself in the way that I want. So there is so many issues. If you talk about journalism, social media, about fake news, about the TV stations or your channels that you can't trust. But I think in the end, it is about you, about your mind. It is up to you. You have to be smart enough to find or figure out what's true and what's not true.
Good. Okay.
Can I add one point?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, that's not entirely new to the social media age. I mean, there's always been the Sun and the Daily Mail and so on. So the media environment was also always very heterogeneous. So you as the reader or as the consumer of political news, of course, you have to think very hard about whom to trust.
Which is not easy.
Another question, right here, orange and a blue sweater over it. Go ahead, on your side, over here. Go ahead, there you go. No, the lady in front of you. I'm ruling this meeting with an iron fist. I have freedom of speech, and I give it to you as I see fit, right? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much. I have a question which is a little bit related to the very first question we heard, so about the social media and who are the people who are actually using it. And I'd like to ask probably mostly Salah Zater and Dr. Sebastian Stier. In my experience, those people who are often very engaged in volunteering and interested in improving the world, and those people are maybe a lot nowadays among us now here. They, in my experience, are all very often also not very active in social media, and they are living somewhat alternatively, and they're kind of proud that they are actually avoiding using social media. So I would like to ask you, just your personal opinion, what do you think? If you think that this doesn't matter at all, and it's completely okay that they are living a little bit in a bubble just among the people with whom they are working, or would you somehow maybe support them to start using social media? Because, like, what do you think? Is our social media so powerful that they could actually inspire and motivate other people to follow them? Or is it okay that those people are not included in using social media a lot?
Yes, I think social media has really big power, and of course we have to encourage them. And now we talk a lot about the negative side, but also there is a big positive side. And social media has changed lots of millions' lives. For example, if we see what's happening, for example, with refugees, for example, or people, they start to flee from their countries because the political situation or war, social media helped a lot to offer places for people, to bring people together, to gathering people, to offer help. And I watch so many people who's doing volunteer work or humanitarian work. They are just simple people. They just try it, for example. I meet Fatima. I will say something story personal. I meet Fatima. She's from Sudan. She's already not here right now. I met her in 2015 in ISWI, and 5-6 months ago, she posted something about there is man. I didn't want to really talk about all the story, but because this is, for me, I don't want to say that I did that thing. But Fatima, she published a story about someone Then I communicate with Fatma. I say, Fatma, what is the problem with that guy? She told me, this is what happened. I'm here in Germany and she's in Sudan. And after 5-6 days, we solved the problem of that guy. So social media has really kind of changed a lot of people's lives. And this is really important to promote human rights, freedom of speech, promote humanity, talk about justice, communicate with people. And I think almost of you, you are not just here. You are here also, you are here just like, not just to meet and have fun and discuss, but also to keep in touch. And I think social media, it's more easy, you know, to, I think you have to be smart. And you have really to know how to use media, social media. This is what I want to say. And of course, there is a huge positive side, but in the end, it's just up to you how you use Facebook or any other social media. Thanks.
May I just I'm sorry. Please. May I just add one remark? Because here I think we see these strong differences between cultures and countries, because in Western countries we have this strong debate about selectivism. You may have heard this term as well, which describes this phenomenon of people just feeling active by just clicking like on Facebook. Making myself feel good as a participant in a campaign, but maybe not changing very much. And this example is something quite different, where you can see the whole spectrum of what is possible and what are the potentials. So not every activity on social media may be of the same quality, but there are a lot of options for really powerful activity.
Yeah. Okay. Next question, right here near the front in the blue. Yeah, he's coming.
Thank you so much for a very interesting discussion to have two perspectives from the those professionals who's working for the media and also from the scientists. I have a question for Mr. Salah Zater. I would like to ask, I become very, I'm not only, you keep repeating the term that you're not trusting the media. Of course, then you say it could, maybe not all media, but for me, I become, it's difficult for me to trust social media nowadays. And frankly speaking, I also really carefully to read blogs, because I think high quality journalism is expensive and it takes time. Like Dr. Stier said, to create a high quality journalism takes research, like Ms. Allroggen said, and for me, it is a high question: how could a blogger reassure their objective, and how they could assure a high quality news in level of journalists, which professional and paid to do their job and try to give a high quality information. So what do you think? I mean, do you have time? How you create your blog? Do you have time to conduct, what is that? High quality information for your readers?
Yeah, yes, I think I agree with you about what you are saying, 100%, but I think it's also, to be honest with you, I am not active anymore on social media since a few months, but I follow some bloggers from different places around the world, because I meet people from everywhere, and it's really, I trust them because I know them face to face, and this is sometimes how I get the news. But I think it's also, it is not that easy, you know, like to reassure, like if what kind of quality that, what kind of news quality that you wanna separate around, because also, as you said, like, there is a big gap between the bloggers who's doing that without paid, and there is also between the media. But to be honest with you, almost time, as a journalist, almost my problem is as a journalist more than a blogger, you know? So I don't experience a lot in this kind of problems as being a blogger. So really, I don't have really that answer, but I think good answer maybe for you, because I didn't really have that big problem is in this field, like to being as a blogger, which I didn't really face a problem with that, and most of my problem as a journalist. But I think as a blogger, you have to keep writing, and you have really, as you said, you have really always try to find that by your mind. Think a lot, you know. Think and think and think. I think in the end you will find who you can trust. And me too, I don't trust social media, but sometimes it's really easy to get information from everywhere. I don't know if my answer is enough for you. I think it's not enough. Yeah, later we can do that.
Go on forever. Right up here, right behind you, Andy. A few rows.
I have a question which is like pretty confusing. The topic of social media is pretty confusing for me because as if we're trying to control the uncontrollable. So basically, I know from my own knowledge, there are two ways of, let's say, destroying a certain system. Let's take the non-verified sources, for example, as the system, for example, we want to destroy. We either create our own new system, which is, for example, the verified one with the trusted sources and everything, or we go through the system that is not really well done, and we keep growing within it until we destroy the whole thing. And these two things are not possible. Because when we're saying, for example, social media, it's not just one company or one person, it's a whole thing. So don't you think that it would be easier to, through education, since a very early age, include critical thinking and focus on that instead of focusing on how to change social media, which is not really controllable by anyone?
Any comments?
Yeah, thank you for this statement. I would stress this very much. It's I think this is the main challenge when it comes to social media in the future, that we have to accept that social media are there. They cannot be controlled by any central institution that knows every fact and can decide which is fake and which is not. It's the main challenge to enable people to assess information and assess postings on social media, and to be able to evaluate what's the value of a post from a blogger, what's the value of information from a professional media organization, what's the value of a post from a politician. Now they all have their aspects that might be helpful for me to understand what's going on, and people today need these skills to know what's going on in the media, and therefore I'm quite happy that Deutschlandfunk, for example, has set up this new program, this daily program, which lifts questions of communication, of media in a main media program to bring it closer to the people. And I think schools, for example, families, they have the challenge for the future to focus much more on enabling people to deal with information and with this global communication.
Right here in front. I don't know who's closer. Nope. Is that me? How's it matter?
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for your presentations. I am particularly interested in the issue in between media and education and politics that is related to justice. I am, the audience knows, I am a human rights and peace educator. And when the revolutions, the so-called Arabic revolutions in north of Africa happened, that it was exactly in 2010 and 2011, so 7 years ago only, then it was a boom of thinking that the media, and particularly the social media, helps that revolution to happen. I don't know if the very young people here remember that, because 7 years ago, perhaps they were, how can I say, 18 years old or 17, but perhaps who we have more than 40, let's say, we remember very well that in the 2010 and 11, all the world were talking about how the social media was helping the revolutions and the freedoms in North Africa, particularly in Tunisia first and then in Egypt, to help the revolution. That it is to spread information on rights, on duties, to spread information about how the system have to be changed, and about justice. And so I have the chance to talk with the young people like these students that were from the North Africa, and to ask them if that social media had been used really on that goals or further goals. And so in all the occasions that we made the interviews and the talks, I teach in Morocco and Egypt. And so I asked my students in the university in Alexandria and El Cairo, and so all my students, we were well trained because they were lawyers that they are going to be specialized in human rights, and so they participate directly in Tahrir Square events, that you know that start of the thing in Egypt, etc. They said that the media and the social media have helped them to spread information, but they need to know, they need to learn, they need to be aware about the changes in order to make the change. So in a way, the social media helps to spread, even to spread information about the meetings, we are going to meet there, etc., coming the police, whatever. So, but not about the content. I mean, social media was not enough in order to bring that ideas about justice, revolution, about Mubarak fall, definitely, or whatever. The social media was absolutely a way to spread some kind of information, but not about concepts, and definitely not about revolution means. So that answer was very interesting, because coming from the people that were making the revolution, at least they were in the squares, and they were not the people, I agree very much what you say, some think that clicking a button, then they making the revolution. The revolution is done in the mind and in the heart and in the soul of people, and not in the computers. That's everywhere. And so they spread this. So they need to think, they need critical thinking, they need learning, they learn knowledge, they need to be aware of the situation in order to act. That the social media was not absolutely the way to have that, and they were a young answer. That is my comment.
Great. That's very interesting that they said it was tactical. Social media was tactical. It got the meetings together, it got the people organized, but it didn't educate. That's a very important distinction. Yeah. Okay, I think this is going to be the last question, and it's going over here. Yes. All right.
Hello, everyone. I'm from Kazakhstan, and there are some websites which are blocked by government, like Daily Mail and Club KG, which is from Kyrgyzstan. They were blocked after the publication of video where Kazakh children in the Islamic State were preparing for big war and were saying about, this is a quote, future terror attacks against Kafirs. So Kazakh government decides that it was a propaganda of violence and the media must not share such videos, but the Daily Mail and Club KG did not delete the video. So as you mentioned, the propaganda issue, I wanted to ask how we can distinguish propaganda from sharing information, and what do you think Kazakh government was right or not in that situation? Thanks.
Anybody here an expert on blocking media? Let's summarize your question just real briefly. You're talking about the example of where so many news sites were blocked. How do you get the right information? How do you get any good information, right? No?
No, I mean the question is about like the video. In the video with children with guns, children were preparing for like war and something. For Kazakh government, it was a propaganda of violence, and our media do not show, they are prohibited to show such things. But for example, Kyrgyz media or British media, they are allowed. So how we can distinguish, was it propaganda or not?
Okay. All right. You got this one?
Yeah, a more remark on that, because these kinds of problems are touching not only the question of propaganda, but sometimes are touching also the problem of human rights, showing dead bodies of people or whatever is also a question of what can you show to people without hurting them psychologically. So if young kids would see that on TV, even quality media would decide not to show pictures like that, not because they're propaganda, but because they can hurting people. So this is maybe our journalist on the panel is more qualified to talk about that. This always is for journalists is a very, very serious decision to take which pictures you can show and which not. And if you decide not to show it, then would you face censorship accusations? This is in the practical daily work of journalism very, very difficult to decide.
Yes, just one sentence. I think it's really on the borderline, and that would be always a discussion, even for the reduction, to talk about it. And you have to hurry up if you have a daily emission. But I think the same, that depends on the ethics of the house itself. And we wouldn't show, we are radio, fortunately, but even online we wouldn't show photos like this. Yes.
Yeah, but I would like to edit something, but also I think the government has no right to block all those newspapers or TV stations, whatever. I think this is completely wrong. Because sometimes if the TV station did something wrong, I think always there is a way for proving their work. But blocking is really a problem. If you talk about Turkey or like Saudi Arabia, Dubai, or those countries, there is really the government, they are controlling all the social media, and also they are controlling, especially Saudi Arabia, they are controlling Twitter. So also they have really big influence on the Twitter company. And also if you talk about Facebook, also they have really big influence in Israel. And sometimes they really block very active Facebook pages. So this is really a big problem about even, I mean, our problem also, we think that everything published in social media is true. And also about the Facebook or Twitter, they are the good guys and they are showing us the wrong and the right thing. But I think this is not right.
Let me just add, no government should block any information. So in Germany, it would be completely illegal for the government to interfere in any public information. It's more a question of journalism. So journalists should decide whether they show some pictures and not the government.
Yeah, and this is very important, right to get information. This is very important, and every human being has the right to get information. So blocking it is not a good idea. And this is, I think it's illegal and everywhere. But in fact, there is so many TV stations, newspapers, they have been blocked, and every day they are still blocking. And situation of journalism, it's so difficult right now. So we talk about so many countries, Arabic countries, for example, there is no freedom of speech. There is no, journalism is really tough work.
Yeah. All right, I'd like to hear a big round of applause for our presenters today, and also for those of you who asked questions. Thank you. Andy, you want to close it up?
All right, thank you to all of our panelists today and to all of the audience members, especially the ones that asked those insightful questions. We've touched on a lot of topics that would warrant their own discussion, such as freedom of speech and censorship and the way in which political messages are communicated. But unfortunately, we do not have any more time. So later on, you might have been able to hear it already. We have the open air concert for you, which starts at 8 p.m. Featuring Departed by Arrest, Naked Superhero, and our headliner, Dr. Kapula. We're really looking forward to that. Also, in parallel, or earlier, at 6:15 p.m. in the Philosopher's Dome, there's a workshop on encryption. So if you're interested in that topic, you can head on down to that on the lawn outside the info point. So thank you very much, and I hope you guys have a great night. We also have a couple of gifts for the panelists as a token of our appreciation. So we'll bring those out. And thank you very much.